Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
And welcome to this week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we are so excited to be here with you tonight to talk some fishing.
Yeah, so let me throw the comments up here. So we're actually, before we get started on the intro, we're waiting on our guests just a little bit. So we have a little bit of banter to talk to you about.
But we do like to, sit and chat with you guys a little bit anyways. So wherever you are at, let us know what your water temps are. Let us know how your weed lines are or what you're fishing for. Because by us, at least, we are falling into a more typical summer pattern, or at least a little bit closer to that finally. So after our crazy spring, that is finally something to be a little bit excited about.
Thank heavens. I couldn't be more happier. It was very nice going out and finally going to where you think the fish are, and the fish are there.
Well, and what's most amazing about that is Josh and I kind of took a shot in the dark, and we went to a new lake. Hey, Mom. We went to a new lake that we've actually never been to before. So, to be able to go out there and put down a place on a map, I think that fish might be there. And then actually to see that come true was a really exciting thing.
Yeah, like our boat had never touched that water before, and so we just floated it out there, and it was awesome. We just started trolling and got a double almost right off the bat.
That actually was pretty amazing. And it wasn't our biggest fish necessarily right away, but we did find some decent size. So as far as scouting a new lake, that's something that people a lot of times really do have a hard time doing, because sometimes you don't do very well. And so to kind of take that shot in the dark is always something kind of crazy.
Yeah.
With that, there was quite a bit of wind this weekend. So, let us know how that went for you. I hear that, is it Salmonorama is going on Lake Michigan? So if you have any reports from that, right, is it a weekend event? If you know more about that, tune in, let us know. Otherwise, let us know how fishing is going for you guys. The other thing that we found to be really interesting this week, actually, and I almost hate to admit this, I'm really a fan of fishing kind of microplastic style. I like using small baits because I just believe that big fish can eat small things also. The one thing that did lend to our success this weekend, though, is actually using bigger bait. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, that's kind of my forte. I like going big or going home. And so I was throwing like almost 2.5 or 3 inch twisters, and we were getting, I think my smallest crappie was that on a 3-inch twister. And so, it always pays. I like to start big and work down. That's just how I roll. And you tend to roll the opposite way, and we end up somewhere in the middle usually. But this weekend we all kind of switched to bigger stuff, and it was working.
Well, and it was amazing the size crappies that were biting, even a 3-inch bait, because that's the thing is some of them we would, even if we were keeping them for a fish fry, which we didn't, but some of them were even a little bit small for that, so you think a 3-inch bait with the size of that, but we still got that many crappie bites. The thing that it did kind of rule out, though, is it is that time of the summer where everything thinks that it's a big fish. So all those tiny little perch and bluegills are snapping almost equally at those big baits that are coming right past them. The thing that we find with that is, being plastics users, we honestly lose some tails. That's one of those things that does not matter how strong your plastics is, how strong they are. It doesn't matter what brand you're using. That's one of those things that if you're using a wiggly tail on a jig, like a little plastic, they might just bite that off. So we switched in this case to either, like you're saying, the longer, bigger twist tail, or even something that was a paddle tail, because that larger profile at the end of that paddle was able to kind of fend off some of those smaller bites, and those little fish could pick, but then you'd still catch those bigger fish that are able to eat that bigger bait.
And as you guys file in here, just to let you know again, we're waiting on the guests. So we're just sitting here talking about crappie fishing in Northeast Wisconsin. If you're interested, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in. We got one from Jacob. Schooling. Yeah, I guess I would say that. schooling is a relative term. I think a lot of the fish have been relating to the weeds, so it seems like a school, but it's not the schooling like you would think in the fall or the winter time. It's not a big ball of fish. They're lined up along the weeds and they're ambushing.
But I do like what Jacob is saying, because actually just last week we were talking on our Thursday show to Brian Brosdahl, and he was talking about some of those fish are still up shallow, panfish especially are up shallow, but those fish are so full, eating bugs, eating minnows, eating all of the different things that are out there, that some of those fish that are a little bit deeper, 15 feet, 18 feet of water, a little bit deeper, especially on those clear bodies of water, you might see those fish out there. They do kind of school up out there, when there's nothing else to relate to. That's what happens. And sometimes those are the biting fish. So, Jacob, I love hearing that that's happening on your lakes. Tobin's checking in. Hey guys, staying cool. Probably because you're wearing striker gear. No, I'm kidding. But sun protection is super, super important. And we might talk a little bit about that tonight, but we'll see. So we see that our guest is actually logged in and actually moving about. So we're giving him a minute to settle in. That's a funny thing about being involved in water sports. I was going to say a guide, but I think he's so much more about that, so much more than that. We'll hear from him, but I think he's just getting off the water, so we have to give him a little time. So, all right, ready to bring him in? I see a thumbs up.
All right. So the guy y'all been waiting for, Mr. Grae. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Doing awesome. And to the people at home, we're letting you know this is like our sound check live. So let us know how you guys can hear us. And then as we're talking, let us know if you have different questions or, certainly join in the conversation. Let us know what you're thinking as we're going along. So great. Thanks for being here, though.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just got off Lake Champlain. I'm fishing the Toyota series up here this week, and it was super windy today, and the area I wanted to check was over in Vermont, and it was about an hour and a half drive around the lake, so I got a little behind schedule.
No worries, man. We're pretty easy cats to get along with.
So you did give us kind of a few little hints there at the things that you're doing, but for someone out there who might not know you at all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Grae Buck. I'm from Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Philadelphia. The town's Green Lane, little town. And I fish the Major League Fishing Pro Circuit, and then I'm also fishing the Toyota Series this year, the Northerns. So that's what I'm at right now. This is going to be the first one of the season for the Toyotas, and I believe we have one more left for the Pro Circuit up on the St. Lawrence River. So I'm getting into my wheelhouse up and getting to fish some smallmouth, be up north. It's making me happy, and that's what I like to do.
That is awesome. And I gotta say, I went and I was checking out at least what was on Facebook recently. And I saw you with some monster smallmouth. So that's really exciting to hear about.
Yeah, that was up. I was practicing on the St. Lawrence River, and then my wife came up. She likes to fish with me too, and she wasn't able to fish in the river at the time because of the off-limits sort of period we got going. But she can fish in the lake, so we went out in the Lake Ontario and we caught a bunch of big smallmouth, and it was a good time. We caught, I think the biggest one was like 5.5 this trip, but
that's awesome.
Earlier this year, I caught my personal best one out there, and it was a 7-pounder. I've been trying to break 7 for so long, and I finally got it.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. I'm gonna come fishing with you because I've never caught anything like that, that's for sure. So I mean, tell us a little bit about your season so far and how it's been going.
Yeah, so this year it's been a little bit up and down. I've had 3 good ones, and then I've had 2 that were a little bit of a struggle. The one that kind of derailed my season a little bit, the water dropped about 2 foot on us down at Lake Eufaula, and I was fishing this grass that was in like 2.5 foot, so there was basically no water left in my grass, and I was never able to relocate them. But the most recent one was on the Potomac River. I'm pretty familiar with that. I live about 2.5 hours from there, depending on traffic, but it was a good one. I came in 27th. I made the day 3 cut there, got a good check out of it. I had a lot of fun. I caught a lot of fish that week, so I don't know exactly where I sit currently in points. I think I'm like 70s or 80s. I'm like just outside the championship, so I need to have a real strong finish at St. Lawrence River and try to squeeze in there. And I'll get to come to La Crosse and fish the Mississippi then.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've
Yeah.
heard that's a good place to be fishing.
I've heard that as well. Oh man, that's awesome. And I appreciate even hearing, about those days that are ups and downs, because that's something that, a lot of fishermen go through. So just know that for the future, we'll all be here rooting for you.
Yeah, no, it's been a kind of a strange year. Like last year, I came in third overall, and every single day kind of went my way. I got a lot of key big bites that like really just put you over that top. And there's just been a couple of them this year. It's fishing. Sometimes you don't find them. Sometimes you can't get on them, and that's part of it. But it makes the days you do catch them all that more enjoyable.
That's for sure. So then, what are your go-to baits?
Oh, I'm a big Z-Man fan. I throw that jackhammer, the vibrating jig they have, the chatterbait. That's my favorite lure. I've caught more big fish on that than anything else. I actually caught my two biggest last year and this year on Lake Sam Rayburn, which I just randomly have a tournament there the last 2 years. So I fished it like 2 weeks of my life, and I've caught a 9.5 and one that was just over 9 this year, and both of them on that jackhammer, just ripping it out of the hydrilla, and it's a lot of fun. And that big jackhammer, but you also get the right ones. That's why I really like throwing it, especially in tournament situations. It kind of covers a little bit of everything, lets you cover a lot of water. So that's my go-to when I go smallmouth fishing. I'm a big Ned rig fan. You catch a lot of those big smallies on it. It's that little 3-inch finesse TRD. My favorite color, it's called the Deal. It's kind of a green pumpkin with that pearl color on the bottom. Looks just like a shad or a goby. So I think it's just a good all-around bait.
Nice.
That's awesome. I've been hearing a lot about Ned rigs the last few years. And to be honest, we were out this past weekend and saw a guy, kayak fisherman, and I am almost certain it had to be a Ned rig on his hook, or on his line, I guess, set up. But that's something that not everybody is super familiar with, but it's a pretty basic setup.
Yeah, it's very easy to throw. You use a spinning rod. I use Seagar line. I use braid. It's 15 pound to a usually 8 pound fluorocarbon leader, and then the head used depending on the depth you're fishing. If you're fishing shallow around some like rocky or weeds, it's called a Hayabusa. It's called a brush easy. It's a little 10 pounds head, little tiny weight. But when you throw that out there, it hits the water and it just glides real naturally and slow down, and that's what triggers those fish to eat it. And what's fun about Ned rig is you catch smallmouth, you catch largemouth, but you also catch everything that lives in the water. You catch perch, I've caught walleye on it before, you catch drum. It's like everything thinks that little 3-inch bait's for them, and they want to eat it. So it's a great all-around bait for that reason. When I fish a little deeper, I'll throw it on a Z-Man. It's called a Ned Locks. It's a little heavier duty hook than the Hayabusa, but they come in, I believe it's a 1/5 ounce is the one I use the most. And when I'm fishing out in 20 foot, catching those deep water smallmouth, that's my go-to.
That's awesome. And it's interesting to hear this from you because, especially as somebody who does have to cover a whole bunch of water, you fish faster than a lot of other people. So to have those different options to go to, and I like hearing kind of that shallower option and that deeper option.
Yeah, no, you can literally throw a Ned rig anywhere and catch fish, and it's just a matter of putting it in front of them. It's like a French fry. If you put a French fry or a dip in front of one of us, we're going to pick it up and eat it.
That's really funny because we kind of started the show talking about bait size, and Josh was picking on me for sometimes using smaller size baits. And now we're talking panfish, and I know that you're talking bass, and that's a little bit different. But I think, I call it, you say French fry, we call it Jello theory, right? Because it's just a tiny little bait. Everyone always has room for dessert, so you see such a small bait go by, match the hatch. It's the profile, the size of minnows in that system. Like you're saying, everything will snap on that.
Yeah. And you catch big fish, you catch some small fish too. So depending on what you're doing, you got to kind of adjust throughout a day. Like in the tournament, maybe you go out and catch a good limit just on your Ned rig, and then you're going to upsize and go through something bigger. But you just got to play with it. And if you need a bite, that's the bait to pick up 100%.
Yeah. Well, and that's just why I bring Josh in my boat, because he starts with the big bait and I start with the little bait.
Well, and there was something funny too, because we were laughing about the Ned rig because we were getting some of our tails bit off. But if you look at a Ned, like the plastic for a Ned rig and the body to a curly tail grub, it's pretty much the same bait. It's just one has a curly tail and one doesn't.
Yeah.
And we were getting bites on just like, because you don't know when your tail's gone, and then you reel a fish up and there's no tail on it, but they ate just the body swimming through, because we're trolling, pretty slow.
Sure.
But that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're here talking about kind of fishing fast. And this is the exact opposite, or maybe it's not. I guess I'm interested in hearing from you. One of the other things I saw on your page is that you are out there using the same AquaView that I am also in love with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see your face light up when you bring up AquaView, because people love watching it. They love using it. And I've learned a ton from it.
Last year was the first year I've had one, and I got it for when I went to Lake Erie. My buddy was telling me about there's just all the walleye and drum and bass are all mixed together, so it was easier to drop that down and just see what's there than try to catch them and see what you're going to catch. So it really is. It's fun. You go across the rocky boulder and you mark a couple fish and you drop that thing down there, and you instantly see them. It's really, really cool. And so when we were up at Lake Ontario the other week, my wife and I, there were some smallmouth that were still on beds. So we dropped the camera down there on the Micro Revolution 5.0.
Yeah.
Little guy. It's a little, probably 4-inch camera, 3-inch camera.
Yeah.
When we dropped that on the bed, that smallie came over and smoked it. It bit it. I couldn't believe how aggressive it was. It was really cool. So then we started playing with them, and we're dropping it down there, and we're recording. And I watched the footage. I haven't been able to edit it yet. It's kind of crooked. I couldn't get the camera to lay perfectly straight there. But you can watch my TRD, that Ned rig, drop down next to him, and you see him come over and pick it up and swim off with it. It was really, it's amazing what you can learn from them. And then the other neat thing about that was, so the fish, when they're on that bed, you picture them being like their eggs over down there. You could actually see these little like rice-size baby smallmouth that were just hundreds of them everywhere on the bed. And you can't see that with your naked eye when you just look in the water. And this is only 6 foot deep, and it's super clear water. Like, you can see the bottom, no problem. And just having that AquaView really kind of puts everything in perspective, what's actually down there.
Wow. Okay. So first question, is that something that you ever use in tournament situations, or that's like a more not really so?
It's more for practice. So if I idle over an area and I don't want to catch a fish there, or if I just want to drop down and make sure they're bass or see what they are, that's kind of the application. It takes a little bit too much time during the actual day to use it. If I'm on a school that I think are smallmouth and for some reason they're not biting, I will dig it out and drop. Make sure that wall or drum, that you're not wasting your time. That's really the biggest advantage of it. For a tournament angler, efficiency is the biggest thing. So if I can be more efficient, that's what it's all about.
Well, and that is really funny to me, because as far as a camera device in itself, it has the reel system for the line, it's all smooth, it's user friendly. You could like rip that line out so fast without hurting the device and throw that camera down there. Like I could go 10 feet down in 4 seconds flat, I bet you. But you know what? The part that takes so long is that you cannot stop watching.
It's very true. The first time I had my wife out with me using it last year was up on Ontario, and there's some big boulders out there, and there was a ton of fish on them, and she was dropping it down and she saw them, and the smallmouth are curious. They swim over and like they're looking in the camera trying to see what's going on there. She didn't fish for like an hour. She was just watching them swim around down there. It was hilarious.
Yeah, but she looked up and was like, "Oh, that was 5 minutes, right?"
Yeah, it goes by quick. It's addicting. You gotta almost be a little bit careful if you're in a tournament situation that you don't get sidetracked.
Yeah. I do also like hearing though what you're saying, that it's not necessarily for tournaments, but the practice. And I do also love it. I mean, I don't even know if you're an ice fisherman, but that is perfect also for ice fishing. If you're the kind of person just checking holes, doing things like that, it's super fast.
I can believe that. I've never been ice fishing in my life, but I can't imagine going and not having it.
Okay, imagine on the boat, all that when the boat like sways this way and you got it like the camera, it does move. That's a thing. Imagine being on solid ice and then the camera doesn't move like that. You could like drop right straight through brush.
I've watched so many videos where people are like jiggling their like worm or jig right in front of the perch or whatever and catching them. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, and in the wintertime, we end up getting a lot of pike the same way you had the smallmouth attack. We end up getting lots of pike attacks.
Oh, really? They bite the whole camera.
Yeah, they'll eat the whole thing.
They'll come up real slow.
We joke about putting a hook on it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So while we're sitting here laughing, I have kind of a whole different question, but kind of a funny topic, and kind of a few months back. So I hope it's okay. But you know, coming into the spring and summer, we heard a lot about like cicada hatches and all of that. And I don't know if it's just because I'm up in Wisconsin, but I didn't hear so much about it. But I did see you posting a little bit about the cicadas and a topwater bite. So how did that go?
Yeah, it was good. Very strange. Like, my house where we were, they were deafening. Like you couldn't hear each other talking outside. They were so loud. They were just everywhere. And then you go to, I have a lake that's 10 minutes from my house, a little 1,500 acres, is electric only. And I went over there and there was like 2 sections where they actually were like on the surface and buzzing around. And you'd see the bluegill come up and eat them, but I could take a popper and you'd throw that out there and they would come over and just, they would engulf it. It was a lot of fun. I had a couple buddies that also were taking a fly rod out there and they were catching carp on it.
Oh.
They thought they were eating the cicadas. I didn't get a chance. I was away when that was like really going on with them, but that sounded like the most fun ever. I can't imagine catching a carp on a fly rod and let it run around.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Carp get huge. Oh my gosh. Well, and you know, that's crazy because so many anglers are out there, you know, they struggle with different bug hatches and stuff. But when you think about such a massive hatch all at once, well, and the thing about cicadas is they're not even really a small bug either.
No, these things were probably 3 to 4 inches long. And these were the ones that are the once every 17 years.
Yeah.
I can remember being, what would it have been, like 13 or 14 when they happened last time. And at my parents' house, we had a pond. We would take a hook and just throw them out. We'd be buzzing on the surface. You would catch one every single cast. I didn't try using live bait this time, though.
That's amazing. Well, and you know, talk about bait that anything will eat. You know, set that up on your Ned rig.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So actually that makes me think of something else that actually you posted about more recently, is, you know, when you are catching fish, one of the most important things is having your drag set right in order to be able to land that big fish. And so I know that you recently posted about that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did one on a spinning reel and I did one also on a bait caster. So the spinning reel, when you hook those fish, I like to have the drag pretty tight to start. That way I can really penetrate their mouth, like bury it in there. And then I like to back it off after that. Just loosen it up if it's a half turn, quarter turn. And you don't want them to be able to just swim wherever they want, but you want to have it so it's like a steady pressure that when they dart, it peels the line off and you're not going to break your line is essentially what you're trying to do. And that lets you tire them out a little bit, get them up to the edge of the boat and either net them or grab them and not have them jumping all over the place.
Yeah, that's really great. I think a lot of times people think about, oh, like have strong enough line. And that lends people to tightening that drag. And then they find themselves still losing fish. And so sometimes the key is having drag tight enough, but also having it loose enough that if the fish were to really yank, that they're not just like, you know, ripping their face off, but instead that's where that drag comes into play.
Yeah, and if you have the drag too tight, when they do make that like dart, either your line could it rips that from their mouth, makes it easy when they do come up the jump, that hole's bigger than, and they can toss your bait that way as well.
We did lose you for a second there, so I admittedly lost my train of thought, but I think I got it. The other thing though that I'm thinking about is this, along with having your drag set right. I think that's a little bit of the reason that people are going to a slightly longer rod these days. Is when you have a rod that can kind of absorb some of those head shakes, or kind of what the fish are throwing at it. That's something else that will help you pull in those big fish.
Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on the bait I'm using, is the action of the rod. So I have usually a medium light, a medium, and a couple medium heavy spinning rods in my boat. And I can pick up which one I want depending on the bait I'm using, the size of the hook, and a lot of times the size of the fish as well. So you kind of get that perfect balance in there, and you really cut down the amount of fish that you lose, and which is very important. If I'm not catching them, I'm not making money, and I'm not getting to pay my mortgage. It's really important for me to catch as many of them as I can.
Yeah, well, and not having fun. That's most important. Before I move on real quick, you did say that was for your spinning rod setup. Is it different for your bait caster?
A lot of times I have it set pretty tight. Usually I'm using heavier line. Like if I'm flipping and pulling them out of grass, I usually have it tightened all the way down. And those fish, when I hook them and they're coming toward me, I use 20-pound Seagar fluorocarbon, or I'm using braid. So I don't give those fish much of an option. If I'm throwing something like a crankbait or jerkbait, something that has treble hooks in it, that I'll loosen it up just a little bit so it has a little bit of give to it. But overall, baitcaster usually have a little more control of those fish when you hook them.
Yeah, that absolutely can be true. And then as far as your rod and reel combos, we're talking about using something that you could be successful with. So what is it that you use to be successful?
I use favorite rods and reels. So I've worked with them for now 3 years, and I'm sold. The drop shot rod that I used with them, it's the best one I've ever used. I can't imagine going back to use another one, because a lot of times it's a little size 2 hook. It's almost like a panfish hook that it looks like, that you're drop shotting for the smallmouth, and it pins them right in the roof of the mouth. But that rod it loads up perfectly. Those fish can come out of the water. Those big smallies are jumping all over the place, and they don't come off. So between that and then the actual rod I use, it's a 721. It's a medium. They call it a medium heavy. It's more of a medium action rod as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah,
it's a jackhammer, and I highly recommend checking it out. If you like drop shot fishing for smallmouth, that's the one. I have 4 of them that I take in the boat when I go out, and I'm drop shotting in the tournament.
That's awesome. I definitely love drop shotting for smallies. That sounds like something that's coming up in my future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you guys do want to try them, I go on their website. My code is GB20, and it'll save you 20% if you're interested in giving them a shot.
Cool.
GB20. Awesome. We can also put that in the comments here. So if people are at home and they miss that, or they want to check it out, that'll be there for them to look at. And perfect. Along with that, if anybody does have any comments or questions or stories to share along the way, let us know that. Otherwise, Grae, tell us, what do you have coming up here next?
Yeah, so I'm going to be at Champlain this week. We start Thursday, and then what do I do after that? I go home for a couple days. I got to fly down to Florida. I'm going to ICAST, go work some sponsored booths and all that. And then it's another quick turnaround. I think I'm home for like 2 more days, and I go back up to the St. Lawrence River for the last pro circuit event of this summer. And then after that, I think it's more like 1 per month with the toy series, finishing out the year. And before I know it, it'll probably be January again. I'm going to have a new boat all lined up and set up and be heading down south, because we'll get our schedule probably here in August or so. It's typical.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you did mention a bunch of really awesome stuff in there. But one of the things that's coming up real quick here, you mentioned, is ICAST. So for people at home, if you don't know what that is, it's a giant expo. I believe it's closed to the industry and media people. So it's not just necessarily a show that anybody can just walk into. And to be honest, I don't know everything, all the regulations for this year specifically. Last year was canceled. Well, not really. really the in-person, and they went all virtual. And that was an interesting aspect because then kind of the public could get involved. As far as this year, to be honest, I think that there's a few things that even the public can be involved in, but I have not really visited that website very much. And so I bet that information is there if you're looking for it. But Grae, do you think that you're going to, be talking products, doing posts? Can we maybe follow you and see what's going on there at iCast?
Yeah, I'll do that. I did it last. I've only ever been one time, and it was 2 years ago. So it was before last year's that was virtual, and I went down there and I worked for a couple of companies, but I didn't really have a whole lot of different people I was working with at the time. So I got to actually walk around and really check everything out. It was really cool. Like all the new products for 2020 that year coming up, and seeing before everybody else did. This time, I think it's going to be more of a working show that I got a bunch of people I got to go shoot videos with and whatnot. But it'll be a lot of fun. I'll still try to sneak out and take a couple of an hour or two that I can just have my own to go check out and see the newest and greatest products coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I'm excited for that. It's just.
But yeah, I'll post them on my Instagram page. I'll do the stories or something like that and show some of the things that are coming out.
Cool.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I cannot wait to see all about that. And people, it's down in Florida, but don't let that trick you. It is not necessarily a saltwater show. It is kind of all open water, and even I think some ice fishing stuff sneaks in. Is that true?
Yeah.
Maybe a bit.
Grae better go visit the Lakewood booth to check out the ice fishing stuff, so he's ready to go when he comes and visits Green Bay, the smallies, and we can bring him out ice fishing.
You guys catch the smallmouth through the ice?
Oh,
we'll make it happen.
We'll catch smallmouth through the ice.
I might be convinced to go ice fishing if that's the case.
You might have to put up with a few crappies. But
all right. I guess dinner is always good to have too.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, so great. It's really interesting to me. A lot of times we have these conversations and people do a lot of talking about the ice fishing gear because I think to some extent that's what Striker at least originally was known for.
Mm-hmm.
But from somebody who has never been ice fishing, what is it that you like about Striker?
Yeah, no, the gears, it's top notch. This year with the new outerwear they came out with, all the was it the low tide hoodie? That's my favorite one that's been this year. It's very similar to the one I have on right now. It's got the hood. It's super light, cool. And I think I have 3 or 4 of them in different colors just because when I go out and practice for a week, I wear one each day and you kind of just keep peeling them off and put the next one on. Today, the adrenaline rain suit came in pretty big. It rained a lot this morning, and I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind is blowing, and the lake was rolling pretty good, and we were getting spray over the side. That adrenaline all the way up. And you might get a little bit around your neck that comes down your face, but your body's dry as a bone. And I can tell you, my partner that was with me today didn't have a striker suit, and he was wishing he did.
Oh my gosh, you're making a great point though, because a lot of times people hear rain gear and they think rain, and it's like the first half of our spring and summer was all drought. So that's kind of crazy. But the thing about that is, wind has been a factor all spring and summer. Every time I've been out, I feel like it's been windy. And sometimes just cutting across the lake like that, like you're saying, that spray really is kind of crazy. Sometimes you just really need to protect from that, or sometimes it is kind of chilly and you don't want to get cold. So there is kind of more applications for rain gear than people originally imagined.
Mm-hmm.
It never leaves my boat. It could be cold and I want to just put it on for the morning run and use it as a windbreaker. There could be the spray like that, or it can be the rain too. You can't not be on the water without it.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely for sure. Man. And you were talking about the sun shirts as well. And so, in this hot heat, because now that's what we had here, that sun protection is huge. It's important. Some people, they choose sunscreen. That's awesome. Some people, it's hard to keep up with sunscreen, or even just, having that on your hands. Some people say it affects the fishing. So when you have gear that can protect you without any of those factors, that's actually really excellent as well. Yeah,
no, I do a combination of, I still use sunscreen, but I don't apply as often as I should throughout the day, we could say. So I wear the hood a lot. I'll put a buff on the fingerless gloves so I can keep casting. I can tie all my knots still, but it protects the back of your hands because you get some weird suntan lines, like when you hold a fishing rod in the same position all day, like part of your hand will be tanned, your fingers won't be that are tucked underneath the reel. You can tell somebody's a fisherman just by looking at their hands. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's really funny. Oh my gosh, awesome. So we got quite a bit of summer left, and you've got quite a bit of season. Well, the whole end of the season, the best part of the season coming up here. So as far as that, how do people continue to follow you on your journey?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The YouTube channel, I do a tournament recap of each day of how it's gone. You'll have highlights. I talk about the baits I was using, the conditions, and that sort of thing. So, and then I also do like just kind of general tips, and every once in a while I'll go fun fishing and just put all sorts of stuff on there. But my Instagram and Facebook page, that's kind of just more snapshots of it. And it's all gray buck fishing. It's Grae. It's spelled a little different than you might suspect, but you can find me pretty easily. If you have questions, shoot me a message. I respond to everybody.
Yeah, it's true. He even responded to me. That's how we have this here tonight. But as far as, following you on social media, that is a whole lot of fun because you have a great mix of, tips for experienced anglers all the way down to, honestly, some of your fishing trips with your, is it your girlfriend or your wife? With your wife. Yeah, it's just so cute. Your adventures going out. And as a fishing couple, I love relating to fishing couples. So, kind of a great range in there as far as social media and fishing goes. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of everything on there too. We go and usually do a national parks trip every year. So this year we're going to Glacier. So there'll be some cool mountains. I'm hoping to do a little bit of fly fishing when I'm out there, catch some cutthroats and all that. So it's not just bass fishing that I do.
Oh my gosh, awesome. I am excited to keep up with that. So to the people at home, I hope that you're excited to keep up with that as well. Thank you guys for being here with us tonight. Yeah. And Grae, thank you as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. If you guys ever want me on again, make sure you let me know. I'll gladly hop on. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it was a great episode. Looking forward to next week also of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.